Should I, 27, let my cheating brother, 35, stay in my new apartment after his wife kicked him out? So, I'm literally in the middle of moving into my first ever apartment on my own, and this whole situation has me questioning everything. Some background. I've been living with my older brother Carlos, 35, his wife Elena, 33F, and their two kids, 6M and 8F, for the past 15 months. It was supposed to be a few weeks, situation after I finished college. But yeah, 15 months later, I'm still here. My brother has basically been like a parent to me since I was 15, when our actual parents moved back to the Philippines. We're Filipino-American, but they left us here for better opportunities, and Carlos was already working, so he kind of became my guardian. Carlos helped pay for some of my engineering degree, and when I say some, I mean like maybe a semester or two worth. But the way he talks about it, you'd think he personally handed the dean a briefcase of cash for my entire education. He brings it up constantly, like we could be talking about the weather, and somehow he'll work in, well, when I was paying for your college, into the conversation. Look, I am genuinely grateful for his help. I seriously am. But it's been this weight hanging over me for years. Anyway, I've been planning this move for like a year, saving carefully from my entry-level engineering job, which doesn't pay that great, Tibaha. I found this small but decent studio apartment that's actually affordable in this insane housing market. Signed the lease last month and was scheduled to move in this weekend. Oh, and the lease specifically says no additional occupants allowed. Like, they were super clear about that. Single occupancy only. So 3 days ago, literally 3 days before my move, I come home from work and all of Carlos's stuff is piled up in the driveway. I'm talking clothes, Xbox, work stuff, everything. Elena is standing there crying while the kids watch TV inside. Turns out Carlos has been having an affair with some coworker named Danielle for almost a year, and Elena just found out because the woman's boyfriend messaged her with screenshots. Elena changed the locks and everything. I was shocked about the affair. Carlos always acted like such a family man, but also weirdly relieved. Like, this is happening right when I'm about to leave anyway. I know that sounds terrible, but it's how I felt. Then yesterday, Carlos shows up at my workplace, like in the parking lot when I was leaving. He looked like absolute shit. Hadn't shaved, same clothes as yesterday, the whole deal. He told me Elena overreacted and there were misunderstandings with the situation. When I asked if he was cheating, he avoided answering directly and just said things got complicated with a coworker. Then he asked if he can stay with me until Elena calms down. I reminded him I'm literally moving into a studio apartment in 3 days. He suggested we could both stay there temporarily, in a studio apartment, with one bed and a lease that specifically forbids additional occupants. When I mentioned my concerns about violating my lease, he dismissed it, saying landlords never enforce those rules. Then he brought up everything he's done for me in that guilt-trippy voice. That utang na loob shit. It's this Filipino concept about debt of gratitude that gets used to manipulate people all the time in my experience. I offered to help him find somewhere else to stay and even loan him some money instead, even though he makes way more than me and still owes me like $2,000 from all the emergency expenses I've covered for him in the last couple years that he never paid back. His face just changed. He got all cold and started saying I was abandoning family when they needed me most. But honestly, for the first time ever, I felt this weird satisfaction when I told him no. I've never really stood up to him before. He stormed off, yelling that I'd regret my disloyalty. Like I'm betraying the family by not letting him crash in my tiny studio and risk my lease. Now my phone is blowing up with calls and messages from relatives in the Philippines and here in the States. My titas, aunts, are messaging me saying I'm selfish and ungrateful, but none of them have even heard my side. My cousin keeps sending me these long voice messages about family obligations. My parents did a video call this morning where my mom cried the entire time saying family always comes first in Filipino culture, and this is not how they raised me. But they didn't really raise me past age 15. Carlos did, and now I'm supposed to sacrifice everything for him. I've been stress-eating banana ketchup spaghetti all day, childhood comfort food, and accidentally broke my Lolo's wooden figurine while packing. My friend Jose suggested family therapy, but that would require everyone to actually listen to each other, which seems impossible right now. The thing is, I feel really guilty, but also weirdly free. Like I'm finally establishing boundaries after years of feeling like I owe Carlos everything. Plus, Carlos always exaggerates how much he's helped me. He tells everyone he paid for most of my college when I'm pretty sure it was just one semester's worth of tuition. I paid the rest with scholarships, loans, and working part-time. It's been 24 hours and I feel sick from the stress, but also proud of myself. I don't know if prioritizing my independence makes me a bad Filipino or if I'm just finally standing up for myself. Carlos texted an hour ago saying he thought he could count on me with sad emojis. Didn't respond. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Thanks for all the responses. To answer some common questions. Edit 2. Some people are asking about the affair details. Honestly, I don't know much beyond what Elena told me. Apparently, it's been going on for almost a year with this Danielle woman from his accounting department. Elena found out because Danielle's boyfriend found their messages and contacted Elena directly with screenshots. Carlos is still claiming it's all a misunderstanding, but the evidence seems pretty clear. Now for the first update. So it's been about 3 weeks since my last post, and holy moly, things are not great. For those asking, yes, I did move into my studio apartment as planned. It's small, but it's mine, and I love it, even though I can barely enjoy it with all this family drama constantly taking over my life. So get this, my extended family has created a WhatsApp group called Pamilya Muna, Family First in Tagalog, to pressure me into helping Carlos. I'm not even in this group, Bato, but my cousin Jackson has been secretly sending me screenshots. It's basically become a 24/7 Miguel bashing forum where relatives take turns suggesting how ungrateful I am and thinking up ways to bring me to my senses. My Tita Delia actually wrote that they need to pray for my soul, like I've done something horrible by not letting my cheating brother crash in my tiny apartment. My parents are now threatening to visit from the Philippines to fix things, which would drain their limited savings just to pressure me in person. My mom keeps saying stuff like, "We need to look our son in the eyes," which honestly makes me feel like some kind of criminal. I've tried explaining my side multiple times on our video calls, but they just talk over me, or my mom starts crying immediately, so the conversation just ends every single time. Various family members have started this weird rotation system where they take turns calling me at random times, like 11 p.m. or 5 a.m., to lecture me about family obligation. My uncle Ramon is the worst. He called me 4 times last night between midnight and 2 a.m. When I finally answered, he talked at me, not with me, me, for almost an hour about how I'm abandoning the brother who raised me. I tried to explain that Carlos didn't exactly raise me the way they all seem to think, but he just kept talking over me. Then this morning, my Tita Feli called at 4:30 a.m. just to check if I've come to my senses yet, like WTF. Oh, and get this, while organizing some paperwork for my tax return last weekend, I know, exciting Saturday night activities, lol. I found old tuition statements and realized Carlos only contributed about 1/4 of what he's always claimed toward my education. I always suspected he was exaggerating, but seeing the actual numbers was Aita, validating, but also infuriating. All these years he's been telling everyone he basically funded my entire degree when it was actually mostly scholarships and my own part-time jobs. I worked at that disgusting campus cafeteria for 3 years, serving mystery meat to pay for books while he's out here acting like he personally handed the university a briefcase of cash. Meanwhile, Carlos's situation has gotten bad, like really bad. He's been staying at sketchy motels, drinking heavily, according to Elena, who still keeps in touch with me, and he's missed so much work that his job is on the line. Last Tuesday, he showed up at my apartment building at 2 a.m., completely wasted, causing enough of a scene that security had to be called. The guard called my unit asking if I knew the intoxicated gentleman in the lobby claiming to be your brother. I was so embarrassed I wanted to die. Carlos apparently tried to convince them he lived there, and they needed to let him up. I couldn't even sleep afterward and had to call in sick to work the next day because I was so stressed. I've also been getting these hostile messages from numbers I don't recognize. Turns out they're Carlos's friends who he's convinced that I'm the villain in this situation. The best part, I found out through a mutual connection that Carlos has been telling his coworkers a completely different story, that we were living together and I kicked him out after an argument. So now I'm somehow the bad guy who made my brother homeless. Cool. The absolute worst was my cousin Maria's birthday party last weekend. I almost didn't go because I was afraid of the drama, but Maria and I have always been close, so I went hoping maybe I could explain my side to people face to face. As soon as I arrived, several of my aunts and uncles either gave me the coldest hello ever or straight up pretended not to see me. I tried to just focus on Maria and gave her the gift I'd bought, this cute necklace she'd been wanting. I was actually having an okay time for about 30 minutes, mostly talking to the younger cousins who don't really care about the whole Carlos situation. Then Uncle Ramon, I swear this guy lives to make my life difficult, called for everyone's attention during the celebration. He started giving this speech about modern kids forgetting Filipino values while staring directly at me the entire time. I noticed several of my aunts nodding along, despite the fact that I know they've complained about supporting their own relatives back home. The hypocrisy was unreal. I tried to respond when he finished, but Tita Lucia immediately jumped in with, "Family is everything. When you have nothing else, family is there." Which is rich coming from her, considering she cut off her own sister for like 5 years over some argument about a family recipe. Not even kidding. Then Carlos arrived, clearly drunk, in the middle of all this. He made this big show of loudly greeting everyone while completely ignoring me. I decided to try talking to him privately, thinking maybe we could at least be civil. Bad idea. As soon as I approached him, he immediately raised his voice, saying, "Oh, now you want to talk to me. Now you care." Everyone started looking over at us. Then he brought up this incident from when I was like 10, where he claims he saved me from drowning at our cousin's pool party. The way he tells it, he heroically rescued me from certain death. But that's not even how it happened. I remember slipping near the deep end, and he helped me out. I wasn't drowning. I wasn't even fully underwater. But in his version, he's practically a lifeguard who performed CPR and breathing life back into my lifeless body or something. He's been telling this story for years, and each time it gets more dramatic. Before I knew it, family members were gathering around, and it turned into this impromptu intervention with everyone taking turns telling me how disappointed they were in me. I felt completely ambushed. Maria was looking super uncomfortable since this was supposed to be her birthday celebration, so I decided to just leave early. When I got back to my car in the parking lot, all 4 tires were slashed. All 4. I had to call an Uber home and deal with getting my car towed the next day. I found out later from Jackson that Carlos was apparently bragging about teaching Miguel a lesson right before the tire incident happened. But of course, nobody saw anything. I'm so torn right now. I actually love having my own space finally. My apartment is small, but it's mine, and for the first time in my life, I don't have to answer to anyone. I can stay up late, leave dishes in the sink if I want to. I usually don't, but the option is there, lol. And just exist without anyone judging me. But the guilt is eating me alive. I've actually been researching lease termination penalties. I'd lose my security deposit plus 2 months' rent, basically all my savings, while obsessively checking those family chat screenshots Jackson sends me. The constant barrage of guilt-tripping texts and calls is wearing me down. I know a lot of you said in my previous post that I shouldn't feel guilty, but honestly, it's like programmed into me at this point. My coworker Jenny, she's Filipino-American too, has actually been really helpful. She said something that stuck with me. Utang na loob isn't meant to destroy both lives. She told me about how her own parents nearly bankrupted themselves sending money to relatives who just kept asking for more. That helped put things in perspective a bit. This is probably TMI, but I've been having these recurring dreams about our childhood home in the Philippines. I haven't been back since I was 13, but in the dreams, I'm always trying to find something important I left behind, but can never remember what it is. I've also been impulse buying all these Filipino comfort foods I normally avoid. Just dropped like $50 at the Asian market on snacks I used to eat as a kid. And I've even started going to church again after avoiding it for years, hoping for Aita, guidance, clarity, a lightning bolt telling me what to do. Spoiler alert, no lightning bolt yet. What prompted me to update now is that things have hit a real crisis point. Carlos lost his job yesterday after showing up drunk again. Alana called me last night because Carlos has been sending her these really disturbing texts that sound almost suicidal. And apparently, he's been staying at our parents' empty rental house. They own a small house here they rent out when they're in the Philippines. and he damaged a bunch of property there while drunk. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. Is standing my ground worth all this family chaos? But at the same time, I can't imagine giving up my independence after finally achieving it. I am genuinely worried about Carlos, though. Despite everything, he is my brother, and I don't want anything bad to happen to him, but I also feel completely manipulated and used. He made his choices, and I'm somehow responsible for cleaning up his mess. A few of you asked what Carlos said in the texts to Elena. She didn't share the exact messages, but mentioned he was saying things like, "Everyone would be better off without me," and "Nothing matters anymore." She's genuinely concerned, despite everything he put her through. Edit 2. To answer the common questions about Carlos's financial situation, yes, he always made way more money than me. He was making around 110K at his job, while I'm at like 65K as an entry-level engineer. He should have plenty saved, but I think his drinking and possibly other things, gambling, have eaten through his finances. So it's definitely not that he can't afford other options. Now for the second update. So it's been about 3 months since my last update, and wow, there's a lot. I honestly don't even know where to start. So Carlos is currently in a court-mandated rehab program. Yeah, that's a thing. My parents came to visit from the Philippines, which was a whole nightmare situation that I'll get to later. And I'm doing okay, actually. Still in my studio apartment, still standing my ground, but also kind of processing a ton of stuff I've learned about my brother that just changes everything. So, after all that mess from my last post, the slashed tires, the drunk appearances, the family WhatsApp group of shame, I was honestly losing my mind. I found this online forum for Filipino Americans who are like dealing with cultural expectations versus American life. It's been seriously eye-opening. Like, there were so many stories similar to mine about the whole utang na loob thing being used to manipulate people. It's weird, because when it's your family, you think your situation is unique. But seeing all these other Philams talk about the same patterns made me start looking back at my childhood differently. Like, I started remembering all these times Carlos would take credit for my accomplishments or twist situations to make it seem like I was forever in his debt. Like, he always told this story about how he helped me win this science fair in 8th grade. But actually what happened was I did the whole project myself, and he just drove me to the school because our parents were already in the Philippines by then. But the way he tells it, he practically built the whole project for me. And then there was this time I got accepted to this engineering summer program, and he told everyone he was the one who encouraged me to apply, when actually my teacher recommended it, and Carlos tried to talk me out of it because he didn't want to drive me there every day. I still felt super conflicted though. Like, I'd wake up some mornings totally convinced I was doing the right thing, and then by evening, I'd be feeling like the worst brother-son in the world. My mom's guilt trip voice would literally play in my head on a loop, lol. It's been this constant back and forth, even though I've stayed firm on not letting Carlos move in. But then, shit got real. Like super real. It all started when I was going through some old paperwork. I've been trying to be more organized since moving into my own place. I found these old bank statements from when I was in college, and something just didn't add up with what Carlos had always told me about how much he contributed to my education. So I reached out to Elena. We still talk. She's actually been really supportive through all this. I asked her some specific questions about their finances from that time. At first, she was hesitant, but then she started looking through their old statements and found something really disturbing. Carlos had been making regular withdrawals from their kids' college accounts over the past 2 years. Their children's college funds. Like thousands of dollars. And that was just the beginning. Elena dug deeper and found statements showing huge transfers to online casinos dating back at least 3 years. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. Carlos has apparently had a gambling addiction this entire time and somehow kept it hidden from everyone. My stomach literally dropped when she told me this. But it got worse. I decided to check my credit report, something I honestly haven't done in like years. I know, I should have been more on top of this. Guys, I found credit cards opened in my name dating back to when I was still in college. Cards I never applied for or used, with balances and late payments affecting my credit score. Carlos had been using my social security number to open credit cards years ago. I was literally sick to my stomach. Like I threw up when I realized what was happening. The more I dug, the worse it got. Based on the timing of everything, I'm pretty sure the money Carlos supposedly contributed to my college tuition. It looks like it actually went to cover his gambling debts instead. I can't prove it 100%, but the dates line up exactly with some huge casino withdrawals Elena found. I tried to share all this evidence with my parents. I really did. I made this whole folder with copies of statements, my credit report, everything. But they wouldn't even look at it. My dad just kept saying I was making things up to justify abandoning family. My mom cried, as usual, and said I was trying to destroy my brother. They literally refused to even look at the evidence. But here's where things get interesting. Two of my aunts, Tita Delia, who was previously one of my biggest critics, and Tita Lucia, they actually did look at the documents, and they were shocked. They started asking Carlos questions he couldn't answer, and suddenly, the family wasn't so united against me anymore. There were actually people taking my side, or at least questioning Carlos's version of events. Then came the confrontation. Strap in, this is a long one. About a month ago, Carlos showed up at my apartment on a Sunday evening. No warning, no text, nothing. I was literally in my pajamas, eating leftover pancit, when security called up. I almost didn't let him in, but I don't know. A part of me thought maybe we could actually talk things through now that I had all this evidence. So he comes up, and at first he's all quiet and subdued, like almost too calm. He sits down and starts with this whole speech about how family needs to stick together during hard times and how he's been going through some stuff. I let him talk for a while, just to see where he was going with it. Then his whole demeanor just changed suddenly. He started getting angry, saying I was deliberately turning the family against him, that I was spreading lies and digging up ancient history to make him look bad. His voice kept getting louder and his face was getting all red. I tried to stay calm, which was so hard. My hands were literally shaking. I asked him about the credit cards opened in my name, about the kids' college funds, about the gambling. He straight up denied everything, said Elena was lying to get back at him for the affair, said I was being naive to believe her, but I had the documents right there. I showed him my credit report with his old address listed on accounts I never opened. When he realized the manipulation wasn't working, he got really quiet for a second. Then he threatened to tell the family about something painful from my past with my college girlfriend if I kept pushing the issue. My blood went cold. He was referring to something that happened years ago that was really painful for me, not going into details for privacy reasons, but the fact that he was holding on to this as some kind of blackmail. I realized in that moment he'd probably been keeping potential dirt on me for years as insurance, just in case he ever needed to control me. It was so calculated and manipulative I couldn't even process it. I asked him to leave. He refused. I said if he didn't leave voluntarily, I'd call security. He laughed. He started getting more agitated, pacing around my tiny apartment. He knocked over this lamp my friend Jenny gave me, and I don't think it was an accident. That's when I called security. They arrived within like 5 minutes. Thank God for responsive building security. Carlos immediately switched to this confused hurt act, told the security guys I had invited him to stay permanently and was now changing my mind. They asked for his ID, which he couldn't produce because he left it in the car, sure. As they escorted him out, he kept saying stuff like, "You're going to regret this, and this isn't over." Not exactly subtle threats. I filed a police report the next morning and got a temporary restraining order. I've never done anything like that before, and honestly felt sick about it. But Jenny came with me and kept reminding me this was necessary. Then, as if all that wasn't enough, the very next day, literally the day before our parents were set to arrive from the Philippines, Carlos got arrested for DUI after sideswiping a parked car. He was like 3 times over the legal limit at 2 p.m. on a Monday. Meanwhile, debt collectors started calling not just me, but various family members looking for Carlos. Turns out, he owes money to basically every casino in a 100-mile radius, plus online gambling sites. The family couldn't ignore it anymore. But the absolute worst discovery came when I was helping my parents sort through some mail that had accumulated at their rental property where Carlos had been staying. I found credit card statements in my parents' names, cards they never applied for. Carlos had opened credit in their names too, potentially putting their retirement security at risk. That was the final straw for them. They still love Carlos, obviously, but they finally acknowledged he needs help beyond just a place to stay. They were completely devastated. My mom cried for like 2 days straight. My dad just went really quiet, which is almost scarier than if he'd been angry. So now Carlos is in this court-mandated rehab program as part of his DUI sentencing. Plus, he's facing potential charges for identity theft, though I'm not sure my parents will press charges. They're still wrestling with that decision. I've actually talked to my landlord and negotiated that I can have family visit for short periods, like my parents while they were here. Despite the single occupancy restriction, he was surprisingly understanding about the whole situation. I've also set up a small trust for my niece and nephew's education that Carlos cannot access under any circumstances. It's not huge, but I'm putting a little money in each month to help replace what was taken from them. They shouldn't suffer because of their dad's addiction. The night before my parents went back to the Philippines, we all had dinner at Elena's place. It was weird, really weird. I got there early to help my mom cook some traditional Filipino dishes. We worked mostly in silence, with her occasionally making comments about the food. Every time I tried to bring up Carlos or the situation, she'd change the subject to something random like, "Do you think this needs more salt?" Or, "Remember when you were little and wouldn't eat vegetables?" Carlos arrived late. He looked different, more subdued from the rehab program, I guess. He was sober at least. Dinner conversation was painfully pleasant, all surface-level stuff about the weather, the food, my parents' flight back home. Anytime the conversation got close to anything real, my mom would frantically change the subject. My dad made this toast about family healing in difficult times that felt super rehearsed. Carlos kept making these pointed comments about forgiveness while staring directly at me, which was uncomfortable as hell. After dinner, my dad took me aside for this private conversation. He acknowledged that Carlos needs professional help, which was huge coming from him. But then, he still slipped in this comment about how family should always have room for each other. I tried to carefully explain my boundaries without challenging him directly. I could tell he didn't fully agree with my position, but he ended the conversation by saying, "You're a good son." I could feel that our relationship had fundamentally changed, though. There was this new distance between us. It's been about a month since they went back, and we have these super awkward family video calls where everyone pretends things are normal. No one mentions Carlos's rehab or the gambling or any of it. Everyone just pretends the last few months never happened. I've actually reconnected with some childhood friends from the Philippines who've given me perspective on all this. Some of them have gone through similar cultural clashes with their families. It's been really helpful. I've also been learning to cook more Filipino dishes. My pancit is actually getting pretty good, lol. It sounds stupid maybe, but it's my way of maintaining a connection to my culture, even though my family relationships are strained. Last week, I found this old letter from my Lola, grandmother, before she passed away years ago. In it, she wrote about how family supports each other, but also respects each other's paths. Reading it made me cry, but also gave me this weird sense of validation. Like maybe setting boundaries isn't actually betraying my culture the way my family made it seem. I still have moments where I question myself. Late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if I could have handled things differently, if I could have somehow helped Carlos without completely sacrificing my own life. But then I remember all the manipulation, the lies, the identity theft, and I know that letting him move in would have just enabled more destructive behavior. I think I'm finally coming to peace with the idea that utang na loob goes both ways. Yes, we owe gratitude to family members who help us, but family members also owe each other respect for boundaries too. Carlos violated that respect in so many ways over so many years. Some of my relationships with extended family might never fully recover, and that's painful to accept. But I also feel like I've finally broken free of this cycle of manipulation that's been going on since I was a teenager.